Lots of rumors with a lot of weight behind them this week. NASCAR was seen talking to Honda. There's apparently rumors that hybrid engines could be the future of the sport. We've got a lot to talk about in today's episode, a lot to catch up on, so you're in for a good one. How's it going, everyone? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. And yes, I know the first thing you're probably asking right now, Eric, why do you keep freaking wearing an IndyCar shirt on a NASCAR show? Well, honestly, it's just a cool looking shirt. I like it. I've only been to one IndyCar race, but it's a cool looking shirt. What can I say? And we're going to be talking about TV ratings, and all American motorsports should be in a pretty good mood this week. So, I'm wearing the shirt. It's a nice shirt. What can I say? But the other thing you've probably noticed and are probably wondering about is why I'm actually in a very different looking studio set. This is obviously a green screen behind me. I'm not actually, I don't have a big wall with this logo and everything, although that would be cool. I should get one of those one day. I just got a green screen set up. I moved out of my last apartment, and since I'm going to be moving around a lot this summer, I wanted to make sure I had kind of a uniform, look to the show still, so you guys know what you're watching. You know this is still Out of the Groove. And the cool thing about a green screen is I can do whatever I want with it. I mean, look at me now. Oh my gosh, I'm the new Digger Cam. Whoa! Anyway, we can have a lot of fun with this thing, but it is just a trial run. If I don't like the way it looks, if it's annoying to edit with or stuff like that, then I'll change it going forward. Just experimenting with it for now, so hopefully it doesn't get in the way of you enjoying the show too much. But anyway, we do have a lot to talk about today. I don't want to waste your time too much. If you missed it, yesterday I uploaded a video. I interviewed Harrison Burton, NASCAR Truck Series driver. That was a really awesome video, a really awesome interview, so I hope you go back and check that out if you missed it. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Hemrick, NASCAR Cup Series driver. So getting some driver interviews this week, really cool to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Daniel Hemrick one, and hopefully, if you missed it, go check out the Harrison Burton one. That was really fun. He's a fan of the show, actually, so it was good to get to talk to him for a little bit. Okay, but NASCAR news, where to start? Let's just start with TV ratings. So TV ratings for not just the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600 this past weekend, but also the Indianapolis 500 were through the roof. Huge increases from last year. Even attendance figures for the Coke 600 were up significantly from last year. So ultimately, I know we check in on this from time to time on this show. Great news if you're an American racing fan. The IndyCar race, I think, saw 10-15% higher viewership this year than last year, but focusing on the NASCAR race, the Coke 600 got a 2.6 rating on Fox, up from a 2.4 last year as far as the overnight ratings are concerned. A little over 4 million viewers estimated tuned in for the Coca-Cola 600. Great news for NASCAR. The attendance, they said roughly 90% of the stands were filled, 90% of the seats were filled, which means you probably had at least 90, maybe 100,000 people in attendance for the Coke 600, which was also higher than last year, so good news all around on the NASCAR front. If you look at this tweet here, estimated viewership for all sorts of racing in America this week, Indy 500, a little over 5 million viewers, good for them, and NASCAR over 4 million viewers, so pretty sweet deal, good weekend for American motorsports fans. Memorial Day weekend's always a special one for racing, and this year's really lived up to the hype. I think the racing was great, we've already talked about that quite a bit. Really, just a fun weekend, good vibes. Now there's some more news that actually just broke, I believe yesterday. The Well & Modified Series Tour is coming back to Martinsville Speedway next year, May of 2020. It's going to be the companion race to the Cup race in May. Remember, the Cup Series is getting a night race at Martinsville on next year's schedule in May, and the Well & Modified Series will be happening the same weekend. It will be the lead-up race, basically, it'll be the companion race to the Cup night race. Nice to see the Modifieds back at Martinsville Speedway. Obviously, they put on a great show, and I'm sure this is a great opportunity for many of those drivers and teams to get great exposure. Backing up a Cup race weekend, you're going to have more people in attendance, more fans. You'll have Cup Series drivers and teams there as well. It's going to be a great weekend, I'm sure, for that series, and I think it'll be a lot of fun for the fans as well. So good to see that happen. Now let's talk about some juicy rumors. As you can see from this tweet from Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal, he says a group of NASCAR executives who were in attendance for the Indianapolis 500 last weekend were seen inside of Honda's hauler during that race weekend. As you can see there, details of whatever meeting took place were unknown. Honda and NASCAR both declined comment, though worth mentioning, not sure if they were actually at this little meeting that people say they saw, but Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps, two high-ups at NASCAR, the NASCAR sanctioning body, were at Indianapolis at the Indy 500, so good chance that they played a role in this, and that's significant for a lot of reasons. NASCAR has been saying for quite a while now that they are optimistic that they can add new manufacturers, especially when the Gen 7 rolls out in about a year and a half, roughly. Assuming they're on track to get the Gen 7 out by 2021, NASCAR has been very open about the fact that they believe they can get several new sponsors. In fact, I remember reading an article, and I talked about it on this show earlier this year, where they said they believe they can double the number of manufacturers in the Gen 7 era. Honda's a big name that always comes up because they're already heavily invested in IndyCar. They're a very, they're a successful car brand. There's some car brands out there that aren't doing doing as well, but Honda's, from what I can tell at least, is doing fine. But that IndyCar connection definitely could play a factor here. Now, the reason the timing of this little rumored meeting or reported meeting, there's interesting here as far as the timing is considered. A couple weeks ago, there was this really weird kind of far-fetched rumor that was started by former driver Mike Wallace, where he suggested that he believed Richard Petty and Mario Andretti were teaming up to form a new NASCAR team, and Honda was going to join them as the manufacturer, join NASCAR. I said it then that I felt like that rumor was a little too good to be true. You know, adding a new manufacturer, more money, more investment in the sport. Just, I couldn't see that happening anytime too soon, and obviously since then we have not seen any reports, haven't seen any announcements, so I think that rumor's probably been debunked for now. But now seeing Honda and NASCAR, you know, getting buddy-buddy, you know, this isn't too shocking. NASCAR, of course, it's one of the biggest races in America. Of course, NASCAR, the top, most wealthiest racing series in America. Of course, they're going to have some people there in attendance. Why not? Of course, they're going to talk to people. I know Indianapolis, IndyCar, even, you know, they invite manufacturers that aren't in their series, like they only have Chevy and Honda in IndyCar right now. They invite other outside manufacturers to the Indy 500, you know, talk with them, try to work with them, you know, try to promote the idea of them being in IndyCar one day. So this is just a typical, you know, it's a sales meeting. IndyCar's trying to sell their product to other manufacturers. NASCAR might as well, you know, do the same, sell their product to other manufacturers as well, because I think IndyCar, NASCAR, any motorsport wants more manufacturers in their sport, because that, one, means more competition, and two, it just means you have another major company investing heavily in your series, and that's money. That's good for, you know, the sanctioning body at least. So of course NASCAR, you would expect them to be trying to win over someone like Honda. I would love to see Honda join NASCAR if it worked out. You know, I know there's some fans out there, you know, more traditional fans who, you know, don't like the idea of a non-American manufacturer joining the sport. You know, when Toyota showed up, you know, the memes, you know, darn Toyotas, you know, they're made in America, but, you know, that's not an American company. But I personally don't care about any of that. I don't care where your company is from. If you want to invest your money into America's biggest motorsport, you have my backing. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said earlier, if Honda joins, it just means more competition for Toyota, Ford, and Chevy. It ups the pressure on them. It's better for the fans. I think it puts on a better product. It's obviously more money in NASCAR, a series that, you know, it could maybe use a little extra money right now to keep things going. So I would not have an issue with Honda. I think, honestly, Toyota coming in, you know, 10, 15 years ago, or whatever it was, I think 2007, Toyota's coming to NASCAR, and you look at least now, Toyota is definitely investing more into NASCAR than Ford and Chevy are, at least consistently, it seems like. I don't have a strong opinion about Honda. Obviously, they're already very supportive of IndyCar. I think if they made the jump over to NASCAR, it would be awesome. I don't know what the car would look like. These are just some Google images that people have made. Yeah, it takes some getting used to, but I would love to see Honda. I'd love to see really any manufacturer join NASCAR at some point. So hopefully these talks progress and something real comes out of this. Now, another big rumor to make the rounds around the NASCAR internet circles was this idea that NASCAR is planning to use hybrid engines starting potentially in 2021 with the Gen 7 car. The rumor, and it was kind of started, I think, by Mike Helton, who went on Dale Jr.'s podcast last week and talked about how, you know, he believes with the Gen 7, the chassis, the actual body of the car, needs to be able to work well with potential changes that the cars might see in the next 10 years, whether it be the engines or things like that. And he mentioned in his quote the possibility of electrifying cars more, which, you know, electric engines. I don't think NASCAR is going into an all-electric series anytime soon whatsoever, but a hybrid is kind of like a small stepping stone that direction. So Mike Helton said those things, got some conversations started, and then other NASCAR people ran with it even further on other forms of social media, other platforms. Ultimately, I still think this is a relatively unbased rumor. I don't actually think NASCAR is going to switch to hybrid engines in the next 2 years. I don't think that's happening. 5, 10 years down the line, maybe. I could see it maybe happening then. And, you know, I think overall, if I just step back and talk about the idea of hybrid engine in NASCAR, are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? I hate to be a fencer on this. You know, the internet loves strong opinions. You know, you got to take a hardline stance, and that's what gets people to watch. But I can't do it on this issue. I'm right in the middle. I'm a total fence sitter on whether or not I think hybrid engines will be good for NASCAR in the near future. I think there's pros, and I think there's cons. Cons of a hybrid engine, you know, I don't know the exact logistics of it, but I would guess it would raise costs for some teams. I know the teams aren't necessarily always the ones providing the engines. Usually that's the manufacturers that's part of their support. But still, that, you know, hybrid engines typically would cost more, I suppose, than traditional engines. And then the other negative, going back to kind of those traditional old school fans, is, you know, I feel like in some cases you might alienate a few of them a little bit more. People who grew up traditionally watching NASCAR with the big V8, high-powered, gas-powered, loud, horsepower, torque, all those buzzwords types of engines. I feel like some of those fans that maybe are starting to come back to NASCAR, as we've seen TV ratings go back up this year and everything, some of those fans that maybe are starting to warm back up to NASCAR, if NASCAR went to an electric or somewhat electric engine, I'm sure some number of those fans would be turned off by that. And I'm not sure if that's something NASCAR needs to do in the short term, because right now I think NASCAR needs needs to get some fans back watching their sport before they make any major drastic changes. So those are kind of the cons, but there also are some big pros to this. We talked about how NASCAR is trying to entice more manufacturers, more investment, more interest in the sport. Now, I'm not an engineer. I don't know the ins and outs of exactly how NASCAR engines work, but I've read plenty from people who do know how these engines work, and everything I've read suggests that the current engines NASCAR runs are basically obsolete. I mean, these engines that NASCAR is running are completely different than the engines that typical street cars are running, and so therefore manufacturers like Ford, Chevy, and Toyota are having to completely build a unique engine just for NASCAR that they really can't use to learn anything for their street cars. That was part of the original draw for manufacturers coming into NASCAR. We test our equipment on these like 900 horsepower, like super fast race cars, and whatever we learn from that, we can then translate into our street car. Obviously, dumb it down. You're not going 200 miles an hour in a Toyota Camry, but you can dumb it down a little bit, and you can learn something from racing that you can then use for your business, to consumers. That's kind of gone away, at least as far as the engines are concerned, because the engines that are being run in NASCAR today are completely different than anything we see in street cars these days. Street cars, it's more hybrids, it's more things like that now. So by NASCAR switching to a hybrid engine, it might cost more at first, but I think you would attract more manufacturers. Honda would probably be much more interested if they knew you're running a hybrid type engine that they can actually learn from in NASCAR and translate to their street vehicles. It'd be better for them business-wise. You look at what they've done in Formula E. It's an all-electric racing series. From what I can tell, it's not like super popular yet, but it's gaining some traction. But they have tons of manufacturers investing in that sport, despite the fact that it doesn't have a huge fan base yet. But they have tons of manufacturers investing in that sport because it's an all-electric series. And the way of the future, whether you want to admit it or not, it might be 30 years, might be 50 years, might be 100 years, but the future is more with electric-powered engines, electric power in general. It's not going to be gas power. It's not going to be fossil fuels forever. So, a Formula E is trying to kind of get ahead of that. They're cutting edge, and a lot of manufacturers like that about them and want to be involved with a brand that is cutting edge. NASCAR right now, as far as the engines are concerned at least, is not cutting edge at all. It's not innovative right now. And I think there are a lot of manufacturers looking at it from the outside who see that and don't want to be involved in it because it's like, what can we learn? That's old. It's old news over there. So if NASCAR does switch to a form of hybrid engines, I can see that as a pro because it will attract more manufacturers and yeah, it just means more money, more support, more competition, like I said earlier. So that's what I mean. There's pros, I think, in the long run if NASCAR switches to hybrids, but there are cons, especially in the short run. Now, I did see a report shortly before I actually started recording this video from Yahoo Sports. They spoke with Toyota Racing Development's David Wilson about hybrid engines, and he said that he doesn't expect to see hybrid engines by 2021. He says that'll be further down the line. But he did say that it's not a question of if, it's a question of how and when it comes to hybrid engines in NASCAR. And I think he's right. Whether you want to admit it or not, hybrid engines will be making their way into NASCAR at some point, not in the next 2 years, probably not in the next 5 years, but maybe 10 years down the line, maybe even less than that, I don't know. We could see a form of a hybrid engine in NASCAR, something different than what we have now, and personally I think there will come a time where it will be necessary. I don't think it's necessary right now in 2019 or 2020, but I think not too far down the line NASCAR should switch to hybrids. That's my stance on it. I know some of you guys will disagree. I know a lot of people I saw on Twitter when I tweeted about this rumor were saying, oh no, we need the engines to stay loud. I don't want that zzz that you hear in electric cars. No, we need to have the loud horsepower engines. Hybrid engines, if they just switch to a hybrid engine, would still have that, I think. They might be a little quieter, but I don't think the loud factor is something we should be worried about right now with a hybrid engine. I don't think that's going to take too much away from that. But again, I don't know where NASCAR's head's at. Maybe they're thinking something a little bit different, but it sounds like from Toyota, yeah, hybrids won't be in NASCAR at 2021, but maybe not too far down the line. But yeah, there's the news. Lots to talk about today. I've done a lot of speaking in the last little bit. Gonna rest my voice, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow. Like I said, I have an interview with Daniel Hemrick. So RCR fans, Daniel Hemrick fans, get excited. He's joined the show. Very nice to talk to him. So you'll get to hear from him tomorrow on the show. Until then, though, remember you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. You can go down in the description and support me by buying an awesome Out of the Groove t-shirt. Represent the show wherever you go. I appreciate that a ton. And a big thank you, of course, to my Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison, at you as the star, selfishgifts.com, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Matthew Koulopoulos, and the rest of these awesome Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for continuing to support me. I know I'm moving around a whole bunch this summer, moving to a bunch of different places, but the show must go on, and I couldn't do it without the support from you guys, so thank you. Again, if you missed it, Harrison Burton was on yesterday, so I encourage you to go check that out. He was a lot of fun to talk to. Daniel Hemrick is tomorrow, but thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow, and then after Pocono on Sunday. Should be a fun one. Thanks for watching, everyone.